So how do you know? How are you going to, how do you know how to follow your passion? And I would say that when I was starting my career, there was really no women in my life who I could look to and say, wow, I want to be her. There's no one that I saw who could be that person that I aspired to be. But I lived in the TV world of, growing up. We watched Bonanza every Sunday. We waited every year to watch The Wizard of Oz because, believe it or not, it came once a year. And all of a sudden, it was in color. So, we were a television generation. And commercials were like our little mini version of Hollywood. It was sexy. It was interesting. So when I was at college, I started working at a cable station. And no one ever, what is a cable station? But it allowed you to start, dipping yourself a little bit into the world of marketing, advertising, creativity. And so I knew that I could not just be in a corporate world. I knew that I had a lot of creative passion. I knew that I had a personality that needed to be able to express itself. But I also knew, because we lived in a very different generation, that I had to earn a living. And so a large corporation was very attractive to me because it gave me some of the job security. And I heard this the other night. We were serial monogamists. We went into a company and we thought, all right, I have Shelley here from HBO. She's been there for 27 years. I've been at YR for 24 years. You went in and this was a marriage. I'm going to grow up in this industry. I'm going to grow up in this company. And so what's important to me is sort of that interconnection between my passion, which I knew that I had this sort of creative bent, my need to have some job security, earn a living in a big corporate environment, and having sort of a very clear path to getting from A to Z. So I don't even know if the word entrepreneurship was in the dictionary then, but it was certainly not, like today, entrepreneurs are the rock stars. They are who everyone aspires to be. When I started in the business, it was a completely different world. And so the best that you could do is find something that you felt that you had a talent for, a proclivity for, an industry that you could see your life in, and I don't think that's how people, think anymore. You go in, you do your thing, if it doesn't work, you do the next thing. We went in and we did our thing, and we just how did you get to where you are? And like Woody Allen said, I just showed up every day. Every day I had one kid, kept coming. You back? Second kid, kept coming. You're back again? Third kid, here I am. And they said, well, nobody comes back after having 3 kids. And at that point, we were starting to have HR rules and regulations. Because again, there was really nobody that I could look at within my organization and say, wow, look, she did it. That's amazing. I want to be that person. So you had to find it. You had to find it from within the industry. So I thought the industry was cool and interesting. And you had to find it within your own talent suite. And I knew that I had some, natural inclination for this type of work. And then you had to find people within the company who could help you sort of find your path and help you figure out how to make it to the next step. And then my final parting thought is, and I had no plan. No. You guys are all so planned. I had no plan. Everything I did was just, I felt that it was, it was instinct and gut within a very secure guardrail of a large corporation. So in my entire career, I worked at 3 large advertising agencies, and that is it. And in fact, from advertising agency 2 to 3, I went because my client fired the agency I was at and said, come with us to the new agency. I was so pissed. Fired our agency. And so I waited about 6, 8, 9 months. I need to speak. Devil, And it was really a client that I had at the previous agency that sort of convinced me that I should move with them to where I am today 23 years later. So even that was a very mitigated risk. So my final thought is it was all about the people. It was about my clients. It was about my colleagues. It was just about how I felt about being in the place. And then it became about necessity. Being able to support I have a wonderful husband, but the burden of supporting the family was shared between both of us. So that's sort of my story. It's not very sexy, but it's been a lot of fun. And the best part of it is I've taken what I've learned and accomplished, and I've been able to now open up what I do to sort of help the women in my own company, help women to vital voices, help women to women in America. So whatever small part we can do to pay it forward, to give back, and to help women who are trying to figure it out, learn from the things we've done well, and for most importantly, probably a lot of the mistakes that we made.
And she is one of the best, like the two best Shelleys in New York City are sitting in this room right now. And I mean, I feel lucky to know them. And anybody that gets an opportunity to talk with either one of them, nuggets of gold all the time. So then we have our entrepreneur here. And I mean, she's running a venture now that's quite impressive. But let's start back at the beginning. Like, when was your first venture?
First, I should say that I have come a long way, as you will hear in a few minutes. But I still have a really long way to go. I mean, I've been interacting with women here and wondering, they should be on the podium, not me. My first encounter with business was at the age of 12. I grew up on a family farm in Nairobi. I'm from Kenya, born and raised in Kenya. So, in African culture, for a man to rear cattle, it's nothing to write home about. It's not entrepreneurship. It's not that he loves animals. It's just an African man thing to do. So it really troubled me at the age of 12 because some of the money that ideally should have been spent on buying me clothes and enjoying myself went to buy cow feed and chicken feed. And I didn't understand why these animals can't get their products sold for a profit and sustain their own costs. So one day after school, at the age of 12, I asked my mom and dad, and I told them, I need to have a conversation with you regarding this cow and farming business. So it was very formal on the dining table. And I said, you know what, Dad, how about instead of giving away the milk and the eggs free of charge to our neighbors and the pastors and the church choir, why can't we find a productive and why can't we just sell the product? So I looked around me and there was nothing new about selling fresh milk and eggs and things like that. So I tasked my mom and I said, you know what, Mom, I've discovered there's a school around the corner. It's a technical school and it teaches people how to make dairy value-added products like cheese and yogurt and sour milk. And she was in shock. Why do you want to learn how to make these things? I didn't even know myself where that was going, but I just thought it was cool to make cheese and yogurt and sour milk. So convinced my mother, she enrolled me in this school, and alas, a few days later, I could be able to whip up cheese and whipped cream and sour milk. So the next question came, okay, what do we do with these products? What do we do with the sour milk and the cheese and the yogurt? Then instead of dishing out fresh milk, we started dishing out yogurt and cheese and sour milk. Then one afternoon after the church service, I decided to round up my friends and I said, I need to talk to you folks. And in the trunk of my parents' car, I had, now I know it's called free samples. So I had packaged just a taste of this product and I gave them to my friends' parents. And literally, as soon as I got home, I had over 20 orders to deliver this product. And I thought that was really cool. And I didn't have a price in mind. So I just quickly called the shop down the street to find out how they are selling the price at which they are selling the product. And I reduced it by 30-40%. So quickly put it on a basket and started making the deliveries. This was during my holiday period. That was about 3 weeks before it ran out. So I was a kid, instead of delivering newspapers, I was delivering yogurt and all this cool stuff. All of a sudden, we had a lot of cow dung piling up in the compound. And I thought, man, we need to sort this out as well. So we lived in a neighborhood where it's a very cosmopolitan neighborhood, very close to the United Nations, and we have all these Westerners who want lush gardens and good stuff like that. So I decided to market our counter. And I did this by sieving. So I constructed a sieving kind of machine. So I put 4 sticks together and a wire mesh on top. And I literally taught our gardener how to sieve the manure and made really fine fertilizer. But this was purely cow shit. And that was my first encounter in business. And within no time, we had more staff than we required, because I realized instead of having all these guys to milk the cows, there are actually machines in India that can help us figure this out. So that was my first phone call to an international market. To buy a milking machine was at the age of 12. How cool is that?
Who knows how to call India? That's what blew my mind. I was like, I didn't even know there were milking machines, and I didn't know I need to call India to get it.
But long story short, a few weeks later I had to go back to school, and we commercialized our farm. So that was my first encounter in business.
Her parents took it over from her. And it was a long-running business.
It was a long run until today. Still runs until today. Allow me to also mention that as things became more sophisticated, I took up the role of managing the books. And today I deal a lot with financial services across the globe on the farm. And now I know it's called financial accounting, but I literally knew how much it costs to buy cow feed, how much it is to sell these products, and what our profit more margins are. So that was my first. From then on, I knew when I grew up I want to run my own business.
Amazing. I was like, where was that at 12? I don't know. I mean, it's just really, really interesting, and you just see the different paths, and you realize that for each person it's a little bit different of the path that they take to find what they're passionate about. One of the things that has happened, so now it goes this way, is that you went from that 12-year-old business to how do you now have the business that you have? What changed and what did you do? Because you did start out and work at a big corporate, but you lasted how long?
3.5 months.
And then, so what changed? What brought you back into entrepreneurship?
Right. So in my second year in university, I lost my father. That was the most tragic thing that ever happened to me. So I figured, and it took me a really long time to deal with the loss. So I wanted to come up with a creative way to pass my time. It was either the high road or the low road. So luckily, I got headpicked and headhunted by one of the leading telcos in East Africa. And by then I was studying finance. So they hired me to do finance and accounting. I had completed my ACCAs at that particular time. So it was finance and accounting. So they put me in their finance department. And during that time, my job was to interact with suppliers who were supplying mostly marketing materials to this particular institution. And I wondered, why is such a huge corporate spending so much money on marketing? I had no clue what marketing was. And 3.5 months later, I was so bored of balancing books. And I felt hollow. I didn't imagine myself doing that for the rest of my life. And by then I had promised my mother that, you know what, Mom, you have 3 other kids, including myself, 3 plus myself to educate. Why don't you focus on the other 3 and I'll try to figure out how I can put myself through campus. So 3.5 months later, and I go home and I say, excuse me, Mom, I don't think it's really working out where I am. So I'm not sure if she was more frustrated that I can't pay my fees anymore, or that my business wouldn't fail. Until today, she still hasn't told me the genuine answer. But she was so frustrated because everyone around her, including herself who had started a business, had failed. So it was definitely coming from a very good place. So the following day I go home and we have the church pastor and the church choir who are there to pray and lay hands on me. But I was done. I was done. And one of the companies that was supplying this particular corporate was a marketing company that focused on below-the-line advertising. That would be billboards and banners and promotional materials like branded T-shirts, branded capes, branded bags, etc. So it was winding up, and one of my childhood friends was working in this particular company. And one day I had invited her home to my mother's house for a cup of tea, including my cousins and several friends. And I said, you know what, your company is winding up. I'm not happy with my job. Why don't we start a company? So it was a crowd like this, and they laughed and had a good laugh and rolled on the carpet, and people were high-fiving, and 20 minutes later when they sat up, I'm like, I'm serious. At least I have a job. Your company is winding up. Let's do something here. And he said, okay, so what would we call it? And my name is Laura, her name is Shiko. I said, why don't you call it S and L? Talk about branding. But we had a name. So we had a name. Next thing is, okay, now we have a name. What are we going to do? So that's a really good question. We have a name. What do we do? And I said, you know what? You have quite a bit of marketing experience. So you'll focus on marketing. I'm a finance geek. I'll handle the books and things like that. So I thought from day one, all I'll be doing is counting how much money we had. We didn't get a client for 7 months straight. And it was getting really frustrating because my friend had moved out of home. I had also moved out to live on campus to focus on, because I wanted to take evening classes, and during the day we were just managing our hustle. Our first business venture, which allowed me to share that story. It was on a day when, so my friend and I had different times. Today I'm depressed, tomorrow she's depressed. So I'm picking her up today, she's picking me up tomorrow. And she decided to redo her CV, which I encouraged her in one way or another because her bills were soaring. I had luckily had a sitting with my vice chancellor, and I told her I need a payment plan for this fees because there was no way I was going back to my mother and saying things are not working out. So it's actually the leading university in Africa. It's a United States International University. The mother university is in San Diego. So I had a chat with the vice chancellor, and she said, okay, so what's a payment plan and how does it work? And I said, you know what, I think I can spread it over 5 payments, and this is how I want to pay. She looked at me in a queer manner but sent me to the chief finance man's office, who agreed to my plan. So this particular day, my colleague was having an interview, and I decided to go on our normal marketing runs. So I walk into an organization, and now I know it's called market segmentation, but I used to know this, today I'm on this street, tomorrow I'm on that street, tomorrow I'm in downtown, the other day I'm in uptown, market segmentation. So I was just about to complete my runs in one particular building, and I was on the topmost floor, and I was tired. It was about lunchtime, so I'm seated at the reception and I said, you know what, let the decision makers come back from lunch, and I'll be able to make my pitch. So as I'm seated there, the CEO of the company walks through the reception, and he looks at me and says, have you been assisted? I said, no. He said, come with me. I had only seen him on TV. So I gather my courage, walk behind him, and I sit in his office. So he says, how can I help you? And I say, you know what, we do branded pens and branded T-shirts and branded capes. Are you interested? I wanted to understand what your budgets are to buy these particular products this year. So he says, okay, that's nice, that's interesting, but we're not looking for that for now. What we are looking for is, he pulls out something from behind his seat. And that was the first time I had seen a tire cover that was not hanging on a Jeep, or that wasn't fixed on a Jeep. I think
those things that they cover
car covers.
Oh, okay, yeah.
We call them wheel covers. Mm-hmm. So he says, do you do this? And I said, yes, we do. And And he says, good, we're looking for 200 pieces. The current service provider is doing it at $50 a piece. If you can match it, the deal is yours. We're done. So he gives it to me and says, anything else? I said, no. So I walk out. And I'm freaking out. So I call my friend and she's not answering because she's in an interview. And I frantically call her and call her and call her. Finally, she answers, and it took me literally 10 minutes to explain what I was holding. I didn't even know it was called a tire cover. So I finally explained to her what that was, and she says, actually, where she was working, they used to outsource that particular product. So she directs me to where they used to outsource the product to. I later hired this guy to become my head of production. So I ran to his shop, and he says, yeah, we do those, but right now we are really swamped, and the best price I can offer it to you is at $12, and you cannot negotiate. So I look at him and I wonder, $12, do you know what you're talking about? And I said, can you show me some samples? He said, I'm out of samples. Can you stitch a sample for me? Managed to talk my way through that, and I told him, you know what, I'll pay you more for a sample. I'll give you $20 for a sample. So he asks me to sit on the pavement, not even in his reception, as he whips up a sample for me. It took 2 hours. He gives it to me, and it's a replica of exactly what I had given to him. So it's a Louis Vuitton for a Louis Vuitton. It's not first or second copy. So I jump on a public bus and I run back to this CEO's office. And of course everyone is back in the office, and the receptionist, so up to the receptionist and I tell her, I'd like to see the CEO. And she looks at me, top down, and she wonders, do you have an appointment? I said no, but I met him over lunch. So her assumption was I came to lunch 3 years later. She thought I had lunch with her CEO. And I said, I need to return something to your CEO. So she thought the CEO left something over lunch and I need to pass it over to him. So she calls the PA to the PA's boss. So you can imagine that channel. Now the boss was so said, let her in. So I go to the boss and I said, you know what, sir? We've been able to do this sample for you. And I told him, my bosses have been so kind. They said, because you're a new client, we'll offer it to you at $40 a piece. And he was in shock.
And did you buy it at 12?
I bought it at 12. I bought it at 20, but the bulk production could cost $12. So he pulls out his drawer and removes $3,000. And he says, this is a down payment for the order. Once you deliver the products, you'll get your balance payment. I have never seen $3,000 in my life before. So I'm unable to take the money, and he says, is there a problem? And I said, no. So he calls his finance people who would later refund him that money. But I just call it favor and grace and luck and being in the right place at the right time. Literally ran out to the outside the building, and I'm calling my friend, and she had received that job opportunity, and I said, you know what, how much are they offering me? $500 per month. You come, we keep doing this hustle, and I'll pay you $700. So sorry, I know that's a bit of a long story.
I love it.
But from that transaction, we were able to get our first office and hire our first employee.
That's amazing. You know, like it's just a born hustler you are. I love it. And so, you know, transitioning to that point, you start from one thing, and then when you're within a company where YNR started as one company, but now you're a global entity. And you, Shelley, you oversee the kind of global business. What is that like when you go from not just dealing with America, but dealing with a global entity?
Well, it's so interesting listening to the story, and obviously being gritty, being a hustler, finding a way to get things done, never saying no, being resourceful, all of those skills, that they really are critical to being successful in a large corporation as well. And we're all so focused on our academic pedigree, or what is my next job going to be? And what's so beautiful about this is the end game is, how do we deliver this thing to this guy for a price that's going to convince him to give me the business? That's no different. But we allow ourselves to, shut that part of our brain off, right? Because we we're functioning in a corporate structure where there are certain rules and regulations. And so if you can take that and apply it literally to everything you do, it's genius. And particularly as you move into other parts of the world where you assume that everybody behaves the same way that you do. So you go to an office, and this happened to me in China, and we are pitching for a piece of Campbell's soup launching in China. And we walk into our office in Shanghai, and they just keep us sitting in the office because we needed to assert that we are here and that we are going to do. I mean, it's just a completely different kind of culture. And at the end of the day, how you behave is so dependent on what that culture expects, particularly from a Westerner. You know, this whole like, we have to do it. You know, that's great. On every market. There? No. It didn't work. So I'm, waiting, and then a friend of ours from Singapore met us there. And he's like, no. You say, we have to be in this room at this time, and you need to have more than one of you there, because this whole saving face thing, you have to look someone in the eye and say, this is what we're going to do. And we're going to get it done by tomorrow. But it's so not part of our culture, because we're so and so I love working in cultures where you learn very quickly that the skills that you have created and learned to do business in the U.S. do not necessarily apply, but then some do. Being resourceful, people so respond to that. Being respectful and not being arrogant and not assuming that you know that if I'm going to bring a product to a country that we have no knowledge of, that I have to defer to those people, learn from them, listen to them, and then sort of incorporate their thinking into what I do for my clients. So I think being curious, I think being humble, I think being respectful, but not so much so that you don't, because, and I've learned a lot from you, Laura, there are times you just have to call the shots, right? You have to say, we are going to do this. You have to walk into that CEO's office and say, I want your business. I'm going to give you your tire cover for $10 less, because that is absolutely what resonates, even in a large corporate environment. So, but again, I think it gets, do your homework, be respectful, and don't think you know everything just because you come from the United States and you have this big, these big brands that you're launching into other markets. It's not that dog don't hunt.
So then, what is it like then being a woman leader? Like, have you noticed what challenges or opportunities have you encountered because of your gender, if you have encountered?
Oh, yeah.
That's a kind of a leading question because we kind of know that.
I mean, it's really, and each culture is different. It's actually, for me, the most difficult market, gender-wise, was in Latin America. And I went to a meeting in Argentina, and we had all the Latin American guys there, and there were two women. And, especially the guys from Brazil, you just have to park your sensibility at the door. You've got to go with it, because they're going to say things that it's like, wow, that is so inappropriate. But, to them it's not. And so I think, and it was very wonderful because my male colleagues from New York, they were like, oh God, she's going to kill them. And then if they didn't think I was going to kill them, they said, if my wife knew I wasn't saying anything, she would kill me. But you just have to understand, this is their world, especially in advertising. This is women in their societies, where we might think it's objectifying or sexualizing. That's the way it is in Brazil. They don't think anything of it. And so maybe you have to look in the mirror and say, well, maybe it's okay. But it's certainly, I am not going to walk in there and sort of make it known that I'm uncomfortable by this kind of behavior, because that's just the way it is. And it's not personal. Women take everything personal. It's cultural. I think it's similar. The only advice I would give is just don't apply your Western sensibilities to every situation you're in, because it is a different culture. There's different expectations. There's different behavior towards gender, to women. And you do your thing, right? Like you have to do what you do because you're there. You've got to get your job done. And just try to understand the cultural context. Study it before you go.
Fascinating.
Right, and it's fascinating. But, sometimes you sit in these meetings.
Well, you go back to your room at night and think, oh my God, what would my mother say?
Exactly.
Really?
That reminded me of the story of you worked extensively in China, and you speak Mandarin. So, how did your first experience doing business in China? What was that like? Given, what was that experience like?
Right. So as the branding business grew, we transformed ourselves. As I mentioned, it became very bold. It was trade, buying and selling, buying and selling, buying and selling. From the wheel cover story, buy, make up margin, and sell. So I wanted to come up with more creative ways, marketing related, to expand and do something that was challenging my intellect. My friend and I decided to go different ways. Our visions were different. We remain very close friends to date, but decided to part ways. So the marketing services segment that we decided to take up is to help our clients who wanted to go into new markets, and it was not deliberate. The companies that we did below the line advertising for, when they were growing to new markets, I didn't sit in some corner office with consultants to figure out, so how do we get into 14 countries? Absolutely, and I love it when Shelley says that she did plan, so I kind of feel safe. Nearer into my future, I pray that you don't always need a plan. So the likes of Deloitte, I remember our first transaction outside Nairobi for Deloitte was in Ethiopia, and they said, Laura, we are opening up a Nairobi office and we need branded staff. How about you come and help us do this in Ethiopia or Uganda or Tanzania? And that was what led to our expansion program. When you do something really well and establish that kind of connection and relationship with clients, no matter how big or small, they will work with you to every path and destination that they are going to. And those around us just thought Benchmark had such a creative expansion strategy. So they wanted to understand, how is it that such a small company in less than 5 years or in 7 countries, how do we do that? Because I didn't have a strategy for that, I volunteered my first mission. It was a Kenyan insurance company that wanted to expand into Tanzania, and I had no clue how to strategically help them set up. And what I did was literally start from the man at the gate. So I started with the registrar of companies, understood the systems and processes to get a company set up. And I volunteered that 3 times, and I thought, wait a minute, this could be a business unit. So we came up with a business plan. And this time I had finished my campus. It was no longer an issue to set up. Paying my fees was no longer a priority. And it's important to just note that when you're starting a business, but do something you're passionate about. I was not passionate about branding tire covers. No, I just wanted to make money to myself through school. So as I started doing this, I was extremely passionate, helping a bank to set up in a different country, you can imagine. And this particular business grew, and we helped African brands to set up to as far as China and Europe and the US. And as we did this, we identified a serious need and gap that our clients had, which was to get and secure financing to be able to support their expansion plans. At this point, we had secured a very decent network in China. And when we were helping our African clients set up in China or send their goods to China, the buyers didn't have a problem in terms of payment and things like that, but our African clients were struggling to do that. So I decided to take a trip, and I met with one of the clients in China. And I said, you know what, you're happy with my client's products? Yes. But they're really struggling to be able to support this particular transaction because of the cost of financing. In Africa now, right today, if you go to the bank and they quote for you 18 to 20% in terms of interest rate, take it and run, because that's a really, really good deal. But as I connected and related with our international strategic partners, I realized that they are borrowing at 3%, under 3%, and it was unbelievable. So managed to convince my friend to set up a meeting with 2 or 3 of his bankers to see where this discussion can go. At the time, I had started learning Mandarin. I'm still learning till today. It's 2,000 characters, come on. So I go into this meeting, and it's bankers. Number one, they were intrigued because they had never seen an African in their boardroom, let alone a woman, and my age just baffled them. So the first thing was, can we touch your hair? So when we got past my age and gender and the texture of my hair, we got to the agenda in hand. And by the time you crack a deal with the Chinese, you need to seal this over meals and dinners and gambe. And I had a very limited budget, very few days that I could be in the country. So talk about different cultures and appreciating what's important to them. So those who are interested in doing business in China, we don't go and seal a deal on day one. No, they must treat you, and you must treat them and reciprocate. So during this meeting, of course, I carried a translator, but I had learned 70% of the language. So they had a translator, and so the translator would say, can we touch your hair? And I'm wondering, what the hell did you just ask that? But I presented my case, of course, in English, and my translator managed to translate my presentation. And I mentioned that the core of the discussion was we were looking for affordable financing for African companies. So I could hear their negotiations, and they mentioned that we've actually done that for someone in Angola at 3%. I'm picking this up from the conversation and the discussions. And they say, no, but she's young, we need to try her out. Why don't we start her out at 6-7%? I knew, so it was in my head, I was thinking, my response, I'm ready. I'm completely ready to get them. So their translator says that. And because I wanted to be sure that the translator just being clever and checks and balances. Yeah. So that's what they presented to me, and I said, you know what, 6-7%. Remember, borrowing in Africa, 18% is a deal. Like 6-7%, anyone can borrow at 6-7% in Africa. So there's no value that you're adding in that case. So they excuse themselves and just talk again in the corner of the room, and they say, I think she's smart. Maybe she knows what she wants. So back and forth, we break for lunch, we come back, I'm wondering, I need to leave the country tomorrow. So finally we close at 3%. And because this was such a new venture for me, I have come to learn the power of volunteering and the power of using a platform. By the time I was going to China to negotiate this deal, it was not a business, it was not a service that we were offering. So I convinced one of our agribusinesses clients to help me to pilot, for lack of a better word, to pilot this particular situation. So managed to secure a term sheet for $1.1 million for this agribusiness at 3%. They knew nothing beyond borrowing at 18% at the time. So quickly packed my bags, came back to Nairobi, and by the time I presented that to him, he said, Laura, where is the catch? What's in it for you? And I said, you know what? I just need a testimonial from you, and you will speak to everyone and anyone that I bring to your doorstep. So since that day, this was in 2009, I have not had to market my business. So one of the reasons why I'm in New York with Shelley is to learn how to proactively now market my business, because we have.
But to the fact she has not marketed her business, she has done $3 billion in transactions she's facilitated with no marketing. So, on word of mouth alone, she's facilitated $3 billion. I told you, blew my mind.
So that was our transition, and we have currently 20% of our service offering is still the marketing services, but 80% is arranging these transactions for African banks, African large and medium-sized companies, and also African governments.
Amazing. Amazing. I love it. So before I ask any other questions, I want to open it up. Does anybody have questions for Shelley or Laura?
Okay. Laura, just to follow up on that last question. My name is Izu. I'm a Wally. Nice to meet you, everyone. Not in finance or an entrepreneur yet. I'm a lawyer at the moment. But do you think the model will change then for banks in Africa or lending services to, I know things move very slowly, but to help decrease their lending rates? Because is this outside model where people can get money outside of their particular countries?
That's a very good question. And sometimes most people ask me, why do banks need you to negotiate an international borrowing on their behalf? So Africa is misunderstood, and for both good and bad reasons. By the time an international financier wants to lend money to Africa, there's a huge risk, either a political risk or a default risk. So there are different layers of comfort that we have been able to put in place to be able to make the borrowers very attractive. It could be a sovereign guarantee. Imagine we are able to secure a sovereign guarantee for an international bank. It could be a trade credit risk insurance or a political risk insurance. So we have been able to connect with international strategic partners who are able to provide all these layers of comfort to the international community. Some are exclusive contracts, so that's why most people are generally lent to us. But currently in Africa, some local banks are trying to lend at as low as 6-7%, but it's still not as attractive as what is available out there. And again, structuring the deal makes all the difference, and we have internal expertise to do it.
Anybody else? Because I have one kind of final round of words of wisdom and advice from the standpoint of being both married. How are your partners supporting you in this point? That's one of the ones. There's two, but this is one because that's important. Yeah.
You just need a partner who supports you. I mean, you can obviously do it on your own. It depends on what you want. So there's it's different for all people. I definitely wanted to get married and have children, and that's not what everybody wants to do. But I also was very clear that I wanted to have my independence, that I wanted to do something. I mean, I knew. My mom came here from Germany. She's a Holocaust survivor. She was never given the opportunity to do what she wanted to do. She saw her entire family killed. They give you the sense of you do what you can do because you've been given a gift. In a country where they're not going to try, well, who knows what's going to happen next, but things are not looking so good. That right? Come over from another country, it's like, you've been given this gift, take advantage of it. And so you're a kid, I mean, you guys are all young, energy.
Being on a dance floor with this woman, you would think that she is quite fun to be on a dance floor.
My kids, I have 2 daughters and a son. My son is much more spontaneous. My daughters are always sort of thinking how to sort of, map out their world. So I didn't do that. But to answer your question and to be really very to the point, when I did finally get into a relationship with someone, I was with someone who totally supported from even way before we even got married. It's like, and you know what? He didn't want it all on him. I mean, really, he said, we're going to do this together. And sometimes I did it, and then, when I was then sometimes he did it, and then ultimately, and it was interesting, in our meeting that we had last week, we had a moment where one of us was given, we actually both had an opportunity. But my opportunity, you mentioned about traveling all the time, was going to really take me on the road, push me way outside my comfort zone. And my husband said to me, go to it. I mean, I'm here. I got your back. And my son was like, yeah, Dad, we're going to have candy for dinner. Dad is, we love you. You're like a really cool mom, but he's way school smart, and he's great at math, and he's a way better homework helper. And when he goes into school, these teachers, they take notice. It's not, So my kids were so excited to have more of their dad at home. My husband was excited that I was going to earn more money. And it was like a win-win. But you have to have that kind of partnership. And then it flexes and it changes, and your life stage change, and what your family needs change, and just don't be so set. You know,
discuss that matter. But my husband and I dated our relationship is older than my business. So he literally saw me from the tire cover story and expanding into these new markets and what I have been blessed to achieve today. But he appreciates that he knows who I am. So the girl who jumped on a plane to China, that hasn't changed in me. And he's a modern man, so it would have been much more difficult in my mother and grandmother's generation. But the fact of, and I married my best friend, so he's always cheering me on and supporting me. And of course, being able to buy the bread, if you can buy the butter, makes a big difference. So.
Wonderful. So yes, that is it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I thought